Matt Weiss, welcome to the show.
Hey, Darius, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh man, I'm doing a lot better now that you're here.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks for joining us, my friend. Guys, I want to give you a little bit about the format of the show. The format's really simple. We are bringing to you thought leaders from around the world who are creating greatness by living their passions, living their values, and really creating change in the world. And I feel so lucky to have Mr. Matthew Weiss here. He's going to be talking about some amazing stuff with us today. Before we get into that, though, a couple of things. We are live streaming. We're live. So there's no edits, bleeps, blurps, none of that stuff. Start a watch party. Ask us questions. And, look, I have my team on standby. They're ready to take your questions, pass them over to us, and away we'll be able to go. So ask your questions, start watch parties. Don't be shy. Like some of the comments that you see. And, let's have some fun. Now, with that said, today, like I said, we do have a very special guest. I feel so lucky to have him. I'm going to read his bio really quickly because he's got an amazing one. Matt, I wrote this one. Do you mind? I took yours and I'm like, I got to write this because when I met you, man, you blew my mind. And I wrote, Matt could be known as the world's most interesting man, part entrepreneur, part award-winning documentary filmmaker, part feature film producer. Matthew is someone who is not afraid to reach for the stars when it comes to living the dream. How is that? I feel like that's pretty spot on.
That's great. You did a good job. You left out former NBA agent, mayoral candidate, sports card enthusiast. It goes on, HOA president. I mean, I like to try new things and push myself. So yeah, life's about experiences. Life's about learning and growing. And unless you're uncomfortable, you're never going to really grow as much as you could.
Yeah, man. I love that. And, the HOA president thing, that's big. But the feature filmmaker, my gosh, that one, when you told me you were doing that, I was like, I want to be Matt Weiss when I grow up. Like that's what I like that. I didn't say that to you, but I thought it. And it's so impressive. So man, obviously there's so much to talk about, but what have you been up to? What's going on in your world right now?
Let me respond to that, Darius. If you want to produce a feature film, then just do it. There's nothing stopping you, other than yourself. Right. You can figure it out. If you really want something, if you're passionate about pursuing something, whether it's writing a book. I know you have a book coming out soon on values, and that's really cool. And that's amazing.
Thank you.
If you obviously really were passionate about sharing some information about core values, and you did it. And so your next chapter could very well be a feature film or whatever, running for office or whatever you might want to pursue.
Yeah.
But right now, what am I up to? I am writing a couple scripts, a couple of feature film scripts. I'm involved in producing a documentary about Muhammad Ali and his son, Muhammad Ali Jr. We're working on that. And those are the kind of key things from the film world. I'm running my law firm, which continues to run despite COVID-19.
Right.
We're way down, but we're making adjustments. Like all good business owners, we're figuring out how to get through this. And so that's keeping me busy. And I've been really interested in back to basics, which is my sports card collection. I just got this is a Bill Russell rookie card from 1957, signed. And I was a collector when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and then got into life and other experiences. But when I collected, cards were just in holders. They weren't really graded and encapsulated. So I have to get my cards graded. So you can see if you look up close, this is the autograph and the card has a grade. And Bill Russell was a guy, he never signed autographs. So having an autograph from him in any form, any quality is a big deal. He didn't sign a lot. And then his rookie card happens to be a valuable card to begin with. So being at home and not going out nearly as much, it's a great hobby to return to, if you will. That's keeping anyone out there watching that wants to trade cards or sell me their cards, just reach out to me on LinkedIn.
So I like on the card front, did you collect cards like when you were a kid, or when did you start doing the card thing?
Yeah, about 17, 18, 19 when I had money. A couple buddies of mine would go to shows, and there was no internet back then. This is like, um, late 80s, early 90s. Um, but when we would go to these card shows, we saw like the Mickey Mantles and the Babe Ruths. Those
Yeah.
cards go for really big money. And then we would see like a Johnny Unitas or a Bart Starr card for like 1/20th of the price. And I'm
Right.
like, how is a Mantle card 5,000 and a Bart Starr card, how is that only $200, $300?
Right.
So we started buying up basketball, football, and even some hockey because it was like, the orphan sports,
Right.
and realizing that eventually people are going to realize it. And so baseball card hobby is now called sports cards because
Right.
people now treat them all equally, when in the day when I'm talking about, it was just baseball cards.
Right.
And so we did really well. I bought some great stuff. Will Chamberlain rookie. I got it for now. It's probably worth 20 times what I paid.
Wow. That's
Yeah, I
so
wish all
cool.
my investments were that good, but it was fun because we saw something, we knew it was right, and we were right. So it was a fun time, and now I'm back into it because I have a lot of cards, some extras I can trade, and I still see some values out there that are worth pursuing. So yeah, it's
That's so
been
cool.
great. Yeah, it's been fun.
So I used to be really into card collecting, and is Beckett still like the guide that everyone uses?
Beckett is one, PSA is another.
Okay.
And it's online now. So Beckett used to get like the paper guide, like the little
Yeah.
magazine.
Yeah.
Now you go online and you pay a monthly subscription to get their pricing. Yeah, so they have all kinds of web pages for SEO. They have a long tail. So basically every card, every set has a page. So they were smart about, transitioning.
Right.
Unlike some other companies like Encyclopedia Britannica, which didn't transition online and lost out to Wikipedia, Beckett was smart, and they saw it and transitioned well.
That's so cool, man. Like what I love about you is you're all about living your passions, and I think like that's like we met at the Gathering of Titans a couple of years ago, and that was like I picked up on that right away, and that resonated with me because I felt like I was at a point in my life where I really needed that, and so that's why I really wanted you to be on the show, just to talk about how you've lived a life where you live your passions. And I think like the best example, but by the way, like I knew of you before we actually met, and that was because I saw that you were promoting this documentary. And I don't want to butcher the name of The Man with the Red Bandana. Did I get that right?
Close. No, so it's Man in Red Bandana.
Yeah, right. Man in Red Bandana. I saw you were promoting that, and I was like, this is really cool that that you're doing that. And so, when I saw that you were speaking at the event that I was attending, I was like, oh, I gotta meet you. And so would you mind talking to the viewers and just telling them about your story about going from, entrepreneur, lawyer to documentary filmmaker to, filmmaker? Like I'd love to hear this story. Like, this is an amazing story.
Sure, Darius. So I graduated law school and was doing law for a big firm, and realized I needed to go out on my own because eventually they were going to spit me out. And a buddy of mine opened up a shop. It was a little closet-sized office. I would have to stand up for him to reach his office. And we started helping another lawyer who had a lot of traffic ticket business. And so we would be in traffic court on our feet all day, helping him with his clients. But then people would walk in looking for assistance. And so they would approach us, and we would actually get hired on the spot, which is rare. Most lawyers don't really get hired on the spot for litigation. Usually they go into court with a client already. But with traffic court, people have a red light ticket or a speeding ticket. And what they do is they see you, they're nervous, they want help. And right in the court, they may hire you on the spot. And then if you win a case, I would give them 10 or 15 business cards. I was giving out hundreds of business cards a week. I would go through a box of business cards every 6 weeks.
Wow.
And put that in perspective, I go through a box of business cards maybe every 3 years. So it was incredible. And so we built this following, and there are other lawyers in each court doing the same thing. And I realized, well, if a lawyer who's in that court anyway is willing to do a case for like $50 or $75, and there are 9 courts in New York City, why don't I start a brand and a business and use that labor that's there already, which is already reasonably priced, get these clients before they walk into the courtroom and make a business out of it.
Nice.
And through the years, we branded ourselves 888 Red Light, which is a toll-free number, which is a website, which is a red light logo, and built this practice where we have a volume business, thousands of tickets. We do about 6,000 tickets a year.
Wow.
And I was still going to court for a while, but then I realized, like, for me to follow other passions that I have, because you heard I'm kind of a Renaissance man,
Yeah.
I needed to free up time. And the only way I could free up time is to figure out, what are my responsibilities for the law firm? What do I currently do? And I made a list. And then I said, okay, what are these things should I not be doing? What should I just abdicate, totally just stop doing? And so I crossed off a few things. And for instance, real estate, I stopped doing closings because that was not our core business.
Right.
And it was taking up a lot of time. And even though it was something that generated income, it was not something that was in our core business that allowed me to grow that business. And of course, it took away time from me pursuing other passions. So then after I did that, the next part of the exercise was to say, okay, what are the things that are on this list that I can give it to someone else to do and delegate? And so those items I figured out. And then finally, what things can we automate? Can we make it where you don't need a person to do? And slowly I gave away most of my responsibilities. The hardest one was sales, because I felt that no one could sell the service of fighting a traffic ticket better than me. We fight traffic tickets, by the way, in the whole state of New York, speeding tickets, red light tickets. That's the core business. Mm-hmm. And so when I realized, my light bulb moment was realized, is like, if someone could sell a ticket 80% as good as me, that's good enough.
Right.
Because 80% good of me means that I'm 100% free from that time.
Yeah.
And so it allowed me to free up my time to work on my business, not in my business, creating systems, processes, and different bigger picture items. And, as those things got done, I had this free time. And one of those was, choosing my bank, because we were in the process of switching banks. And we ended up going to Hudson Valley Bank, and my representative there, Jeff Crowther, invited me to lunch. And over lunch, he told me about his son, Wells Crowther, and I was just blown away. I thought it was one of the most incredible stories that I'd ever heard. Wells was a hero from 9/11 who died that day tragically. And then 8 months later, his family learned about his heroics, carrying people out of the building and putting out fires and saving at least 10 people that day from the upper level of the South Tower, all because of this red bandana. Without this red bandana connection, they would have never learned about their son's heroics 8 months later. And I thought it was incredible. And he was very emotional about it. And it just stuck with me. And I asked him if I could make a film about his son. And he said yes. And it started a 6-year project for me to get it right for Wells, because I couldn't just make a film. It had to be a really good film.
Right.
Now, keep in mind, I never took a class in filmmaking. I never read a book in filmmaking. I had no experience about filmmaking other than I like to watch movies.
Yeah.
And, but the most important thing is, I think passion trumps experience all day long.
Yeah.
And I'm as passionate now about Wells' story as I am when I first heard it. So sharing that story got me through the tedious editing process, where we would spend 6-7 hours for a really good 25 seconds. And the research and the writing and the rewriting. And, it's just a long commitment, a major project. And a lot of people start things, but they don't finish them. Mm-hmm. And I was going to not disappoint the Crowthers. Not only was I going to finish it, but I was going to finish it with a piece of art, a tribute to their son that was worthy of him and his heroic, because he was an incredible human being. He's a model for me, a model for others. And it had to be right. It had to put it this way, there was no budget. If I had a budget and I said, okay, we have enough money for 3 animations and we need 6 computer animations to show things. Well, we're doing 6. So I have a budget, because you got to get it right. It wasn't a question of how much money was this going to cost. It was getting it right for Wells.
Yeah,
and the beauty is, the reason I give you all that background is because I had the time to commit to this film, because I had set up this process through the abdicating, automating, and delegating process. I had freed up enough of my time that I could pursue this opportunity when it came about.
Yeah. That's amazing. And like, as you're talking, I just keep thinking, I'm like, you're such an entrepreneur, man. Like the like, just like, even from how you decided to start your business, and, you know, seeing that opportunity, and it seems like your brain is always optimizing for opportunity, and to have that fearlessness around taking a chance, like that's really honorable and awesome, man. And especially when you're following your passions, I commend you for it, because I think a lot of people, you know, it's easy to be afraid to follow your heart and to go after things that are hard to go after, you know. And I mean, what's your thought on that? Like, how do you just not have that fear, or is it that you do and you're like, when you have that fear, you're like, now that's even more of a reason for me to do this?
You know, you can't be afraid of failing, right? You just have to suck it up. No one likes failing, and I've had plenty of bad decisions I've made. I kicked myself from them. Just made one with my cards the other day. This is a great story. So there used to be these cases that screw down, and so I ended up picking up a card of a Roy Campanella rookie. It was probably worth about 5, 6, 7,000, and it was screwed down because the prior owner, who I got it, gave me a good deal. And I went to open it up, and the card stuck to the plastic, part of it, and I opened it, and it ripped part of the card. So the card's probably still worth about $1,000, $1,200. But if I had done a little more research, I would have found out that a hairdryer for about 5 minutes would have loosened the card and would have slid off. And so, you don't know how many times in my head I kick myself for damaging this card. Like, so we all make mistakes. We all fail in life, and you just have to accept it. And you have to take into account two things. One, no matter what person you're talking about, no matter anyone who did anything great in this world, did not have some failures along the way, some obstacles, some disappointment. You're going to have that. That comes with the territory. So if you're going to take on a project hoping not to have a difficulty or obstacle, don't do it, because you're going to have it. You need to expect it. But the beauty is, if you have that mindset that there's going to be naysayers, there's going to be an obstacle, there's going to be some negativity, when it appears, you're like, oh, there it is. It's not you don't get blindsided by it. You don't get misguided by it, because you've anticipated it. You've expected it. You just don't know when, but you know it's coming. So I think that's a good best practice for me, is expect naysayers, people who may tell you, yeah, you can't do this. You can't make a film. I interviewed a lawyer for the film, my doc, and I told him my goal for the film was to win an Oscar for best documentary. That was my goal. Shoot high, right? I'm shooting for the stars, and hopefully I'll end up in the moon. But why am I going to make a film that doesn't have those lofty goals?
Right.
And his reaction to me is, well, you're on crack. Meaning you're not going to, and I'm like, okay, well, you're not hired.
Yeah.
He didn't have the vision. He didn't have it. And by the same token, I would interview a sound guy, and he's like, let's do it. I love that,
Yeah.
And why not? Who wants people that aren't going to have your shared vision? And it turned out to be a really good North Star for me to find the right people and the right team as I built it to get them on the bus.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I think it kind of foots I was talking to a guest yesterday, and I said, people want to be inspired to be a part of something greater than themselves, and really, I want to finish this thought, but I want to go and make sure that our audience knows that, hey, if you have questions right now, ask questions. My team's standing by. We have a filmmaker extraordinaire here, and we haven't even got into like your connections with Gwyneth Paltrow and what you just did with your feature film. I mean, we're going to go deep on this stuff. So you guys, I don't know about you, but I'm not in the movie business, so I don't get to sit down and talk to, filmmakers like for coffee on a Tuesday randomly, right? So we have Matthew here. Let's use it. This is really valuable time. So and start watch parties, ask questions, team standing by. But going back to what I was saying, people want to be a part of something greater than themselves, and I will fall on my sword to the end of time. Actually, that's why I wrote the book, right? Because I'm like, what I discovered, and with this book that's coming out in 8 weeks, is that the book is really part of the discovery process, is a result of the discovery process, that I believe that people resonate towards the beliefs of their values And when it becomes explicit and it becomes part of, let's say, a cause, whether it's a project or a business or a nonprofit or whatever it is, when people understand why they're there and why you're there, it elevates them to a higher level and it gets them to dream bigger. And they get into this creator mindset of that they're doing it for more than just a paycheck. And so using your example of the lawyer that's like telling you why it's not going to happen, it's like, well, yeah, of course, like the odds of it happening are basically probably like 1 in 100,000 or 1 in 200,000. I don't know how many documentaries are made each year, but I'm guessing it's in the tens, if not hundreds of thousands. And so, yeah, that's the odds. I had a buddy, EO guy, whose brother quit his job as an investment banker to become a speed skater in Canada. His name is Kevin Jagger. And this is like, he was like 24. He didn't even know how to ice skate, by the way. And he's like, I want to become an Olympian. And so like, that's a crazy goal, right? And so he does it and he ends up becoming like top 20 in Canada within 3 years. Now the guy's an excellent athlete. He chose a specific sport and he was on his way to San Francisco to do a TEDx talk at an event that I was doing at the Young Museum. And he tells this story to the crowd. He goes, I'm in the car and the taxi driver says to me, so what do you do for a living? He said, I'm a speed skater. And the taxi driver says, oh, are you an Olympian? And he said, that's like asking someone, are you the number one, like if I was a real estate agent, I'd be like saying, are you the number one real estate agent in your country? The minute I told you I'm a real estate agent, right? So people always go for that, right? And I think that that's, to your point, the wrong mentality to have, which is, well, don't do it unless you're gonna be number one. Like, I'd like, why would he say that to you? And I think it's all about surrounding yourself with people that believe in the cause. So yeah. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but that's
well, I agree. Although the funny part is that his goal was to be an Olympian, you know, so he was still striving for it, but he was also realistic. So just because you have a lofty goal doesn't guarantee you're going to get there, but you're just going to require, it's going to incentivize you to give your very best.
Right.
To cut no corners, to wake up at 3 a.m. when you have that little tweak or polishing that you want to add and get it done and make sure you don't forget or write it down. So I think shooting high is critical. I think expecting disappointment, anticipating it helps you get through that difficulty. Right. And passion. You must love what you do. You have to be passionate about it. I'm really passionate about sharing Wells' story. He was an incredible hero. He was courageous, selfless, and a model for me and many others. So having that gift that the Crowthers gave me of sharing a story was incredible. In fact, I tell people it's the single best gift that anyone's ever given me in my life was permission to make this film. So when you do pursue that lofty goal, make sure you have passion about it. You know, there are a lot of great things to do and accomplish in this world, but you need to have the passion behind it. Otherwise, you may not complete it or you may not do it in the manner that it warrants, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's funny you use the word passion. So that event I threw, the name of it was called The Pursuit of Passion, and his talk was called The Passion of Pursuit. And so he's like, to your point, he's like, I knew my goal. I knew I had a low chance of hitting that goal, but I wanted to enjoy every minute of the process, you know. And what you're saying right now, I'm living it, right, with the book. Like I'm getting up. I'm like, I've never woken up this many consecutive days at 4 o'clock in the morning to start working. So it's around having that tap dancing to work mentality. We have a question that came across, by the way, for you. Was there anything that came up when making your film that you? Oh no, there's 2 questions. So first one is, how do you recommend people begin finding what they are truly passionate about?
Oh, that's the beauty. It just, you know it when you see it. It's kind of like obscenity under the Supreme Court's definition. I can't define it, but I know it when I see it.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. You know, your heart tells you if you're passionate about something. So you got to keep your ears and eyes open. When that opportunity arises, you're going to know it. So it goes hand in hand. How could you be passionate? How could I tell you what you're passionate about? I can't, but you know it, you feel it, you sense it, right? So to me, that's the best answer I can give. In fact, the lecture that I gave at Gathering of Titans that you were at, I talked about what to do and how to pursue your passion, but I never told anyone what passion they have. I did give examples about writing a book, running for office, making a movie as some examples, starting a charity. There, those are all great things that you might want to do, but those are something that are personal. Those are something that you have to relate to. Some people have, love dogs. Some people love kids. Some people are environmentalists. I mean, everyone has different passions in this world. For me and Wells, I just felt in this world there's not enough of selfless people and giving, and Wells would personify selflessness. And by sharing his story, I hoped it would encourage others to be a little more generous and think a little less about themselves and a little more about others. And so that was something that I was passionate about, the heroism, the courage, and the selflessness. But you'll know it when you see it.
Yeah, that's so great. I have, you just reminded me when you said your heart will tell you. One of my friends, he's a pastor actually, and he runs a nonprofit in Africa. And he said, Darius, what makes your heart sing? And I love that visualization. So you reminded me of that. Thank you for that.
Yeah, sure.
We have another question, and it's, was there anything that came up when making your film that you didn't know that you want new filmmakers to know? Like, what was the biggest learning, I guess?
Well, it's a major commitment. I didn't realize what it was entailed when I said, let's do this, right? But the longest part, the hardest part is the editing. We had hundreds of hours of footage. And keep in mind, with a documentary like we did, we had interviews, we had computer animations, we had recreations, we had archive footage, and then we had to sew them all together, overlaying music. So there's 5 elements that we had to put together to create this art. And it takes time. I mentioned earlier, you could spend 6 hours for 25 seconds. And the good part is when you're passionate about it, you get really super excited. That's a really good 25 seconds.
Right.
As opposed to going through the drudgery of it, I only got 25 seconds done. No. We got really good 25 seconds. So my mindset is very different because of that, and because of my excitement to share this story. So I guess that's it. And then I think the other thing is make sure as a first-time filmmaker that it's really good content, that it's a good story, that you have a beginning, middle, and end, mostly the end. And once you know the ending, the beginning and middle are going to flow really well. So in fact, you probably watch a lot of movies where it starts out really good and then it ends like, oh, I wasted my time. The ending is critical for anyone who evaluates a book or a movie. You need to have a good ending. And so make sure you have that arc, that story. And the reason I say make sure it's a good quality story is because you're a first-time filmmaker. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to see things that maybe others don't see, maybe only professionals see. But if you have a good content, a good story, it's going to allow you to get past a lot of those, kind of hiccups and wrinkles along the way. With Wells' story, I was molding with the best clay out there. You can't buy better clay than I had for this story. The story is incredible. In fact, I would honestly tell you that Wells' story is so impressive and impactful that it hides my ineptitude as a filmmaker. That's how strong a story it is.
Oh, that's cool. And I think I remember this, but wasn't Gwyneth Paltrow involved with this project?
Yes. Well, so along the way, I always envisioned A-lister to narrate the film, to add some cachet, allow film festivals to be more interested, to have more people want to see the film, right? Because of that attachment of a celebrity. But also in my mind, it was always a male. I was always a man because me, obviously a male writer, a story dominated by men, very harsh, raw story involving, death and collapsing buildings and a lot of injuries. And, it's tough. It's a hard, harsh story. And so I worked my network and literally spoke to 150, 200 people. Do you know any A-list, any connection to A-list actors? And realized right away it's going to have to be a warm introduction. I'm not going to be able to just write a letter to Al Pacino and he's going to narrate for me. And so what happened was one of my conversations led to a friend of mine Joel, who's a lawyer, and he said, "Oh yeah, my buddy who does fantasy football with, he's a PR guy for Alec Baldwin." So he says, "I'll make an intro." So I speak to his PR guy and told him the story, and he's like, "That's great. I'm gonna show it to Alec, and I'll show it to Gwyneth." And I'm like, "That's great." Hung up the phone, and right away I knew Gwyneth Paltrow. Like, how many Gwyneths are there, right?
Right.
But then I said, "Matt, you're an idiot. Why would you want a man to narrate this film? You want a woman to narrate this story. You need to provide some balance, some softness. That's a tough story." And, it's like kind of like an accidental genius by having that female voice, because she was a yes, he was a no. And I was super excited. This is an Oscar-winning actress narrating a first-time film. Incredible, incredible.
Yeah.
And the beauty is that the story resonated with her. She thought it was an incredible story. And she too, like me, wanted to share the story about selflessness and caring and giving. And so my passion and my values kind of mirrored or resonated with her. And she agreed to do it. And she didn't charge for it. She just did it as out of kindness. And by the way, she's never narrated a documentary before mine. This is the first.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was incredible, and great coup for us. And same thing with Lyle Lovett, who recorded an original song for my film. There are songs written about Wells, and there are babies named after him. There's all kinds of honors that are out there from people that have been touched and impacted by his story. And Lyle heard about it and recorded a song that someone else wrote about Wells for my film. And
Wow.
same thing, didn't charge, just did it with his band, and it was amazing.
That's so cool, man. Like, let's say like the world conspires to help you when you're in, like when you're doing, like when you're following your heart. What's it saying? I'm screwing it up right now, but it's like the world conspires to help you when you're following your dreams.
Yeah, especially if you're doing, in my case, I was making a film about this courageous hero, and
Yeah.
it was something that a story that a lot of people would resonate with. And so there were total strangers, they would name their son or daughter after Wells, and I would write them an email saying, "Hey, could you send me a high resolution photo of your son or daughter? And can you sign this 3-page legal document, allow me to use it in my film?" And 98% of them said, "Sure, no problem."
Right.
Incredible, right? And in part because they wanted to be in part of this story, because of the nature of the story and the goodness that it involved.
Yeah, it goes back to what we're saying. People want to be a part of something greater than themselves, and your work is such a representation of that. I mean, it's so inspiring to hear this, friend. I mean, seriously, Matthew, I really appreciate this you sharing the story with the audience. We're running. I really want, man. We're out of time, unfortunately. I wanted to dive into the feature film you did with Chaz Palminteri, Don Johnson.
So I'll just
Young.
so I can close with that real quick.
Yeah.
Working on the doc, which I funded myself and did purely not to make money, but to share a story. And I'm going to never get back all my money, but that's okay because I didn't make it for that. I made it to create this piece of art to share and encourage others. But I met Chad Verdi of Verdi Productions, who helped me get the film finished with his team and get it distributed. And Chad invited me to be on his next project, a feature film involving a heist from a vault that happened in 1975. The movie's called The Vault, with Chaz Palminteri, as you mentioned, who plays the head of the mob. Don Johnson is in it. Samira Wiley from Orange is the Next Black. Theo Rossi from Sons of Anarchy. And can you imagine, now I'm a producer, the highest level on the set, with Chad and a few others, sitting right behind the director as we're making a feature film with sets and props and costumes, all because I made this doc, all because I gave selflessly these incredible opportunities, working with Gwyneth Paltrow, working with Lyle Lovett, all these incredible experiences in my life that I have, all because of this. And if I could leave one good word of advice for anyone watching, collect amazing experiences. That's what's life about. It's not about a car or a second home, boats. It's about having amazing, unique experiences. So collect experiences.
Oh man, you beat me to the punch. I was like gonna ask you, what's the advice you're gonna give, and you gave it. Oh, perfect. You rock, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much, Matthew. This has been such a pleasure for me to interview you.
Great to
And
see you, Darius. Yeah.
yeah, this has been so great. So thank you so much. Such big gratitude. Guys, we have another show later on today, but thank you, Matthew, for your time. And guys, we'll see you later.
Good
Peace
luck
out.
on the book launch.
All right.